Mulholland Drive is my favorite film because it epitomizes a worldview that continues to cast its influence on me to this day. In 2.5 hours, Lynch tells a story in which fiction is truth and dreams are just as essential as reality.
I mean, I just came here from Deep River, Ontario, and now I'm in this dream place.
And while the film is often characterized as bizarre and impenetrable, I believe Mulholland Drive may be one of the best attempts ever made to capture the subjectivity, with all of its inherent subtleties, of a person's internal world. Through the character of Diane and Betty, what is deeply personal becomes universal, because for each person, life is deeply personal. In the film's first 2 bewildering hours, we are presented with a series of scenes that operate with their own internal dreamlike logic. At first, characters seem to be introduced at random. A woman is in a car accident. A man has a waking nightmare in a diner. A series of phone calls are made. A wide-eyed girl gets off a plane. Eventually, we start to spend more time with Betty and Rita, and can discern that these are our protagonists. 2 hours later, these women sit in Club Silencio, and a twist is revealed. Betty is Diane, and what we have just watched may have actually been an elaborate fantasy she's constructed in an attempt to shield her psyche from the hit she has successfully placed on her ex-lover, Camilla Rhodes. There are endless essays on what Mulholland Drive really means, and it goes without saying that the ideas I'm about to share are simply my own opinions. After all, one of the best parts about watching Mulholland Drive for the first, second, or even 10th time is how fun it is to play detective and try to figure out what's really going on.
Come on, it'll be just like in the movies. We'll pretend to be someone else.
David Lynch has endorsed this practice, always encouraging viewers to form their own relationships with his work rather than subscribing to some objective explanation. His entire career, he's done his best to avoid doing any interpreting of his films for his audience.
It's the film, the language is cinema. When things are concrete, very few variations in interpretation. But the more abstract a thing gets, the more varied the interpretations. But people still know inside what it is for them. That's the beauty of it. It's just like life. You see the same things, but you come up with many, many different things as you go along as a detective.
Now, the most intuitive and direct way to unpack Mulholland Drive is to try and identify the particular ways in which Diane's story is fed through Betty's fantasies. And after the first couple of times I watched the film, this is what I did. Yet with each successive view, I've become more convinced that these parallels are not just a set of Easter eggs to be solved for our amusement. Instead, I believe that this entertaining and very worthwhile exercise of drawing connections is secondary to the meta-themes which define the film. Betty's story is not simply analogous to Diane's, it is the form and content of Diane's psyche. It is Diane's inner world, or Betty's story, that actually catalyzes and sustains the actions which lead to her supposed suicide. Her dreams are at the core of her reality, just like our dreams are at the core of ours. Diane's story is a straightforward narrative about a failed actress who endures continual humiliation from an industry she idolizes, as she becomes progressively more jealous towards an ex-girlfriend whom she eventually calls a hit-on. Betty's story is of an aspiring actress who chases her dreams in LA, but along the way becomes embroiled in a mystery surrounding an amnesiac woman who she falls in love with, and an industry which is corrupted by a dangerous conspiracy. Of the two, Betty's story is far more entertaining, but this is hardly a competition. We follow Betty for the lion's share of the film, and her story is told in an endlessly engaging and unpredictably surreal manner. Hers is a world we can retreat into. There's espionage, threatening cowboys, and even Billy Ray Cyrus. When we leave Betty's world and enter Diane's, the film becomes colder. We have entered the real world, in which life has consequences and time marches forward. Still, Diane's story becomes one we can empathize with. Despite its 30-minute runtime, we carry what we have learned about Betty into all of Diane's encounters. We treat them as the same person because even though Betty is fictional, the dreams and desires which she embodies are the ones which define Diane. At the core of Diane's predicament is the ever-widening chasm between who she is and who she wants to be. The nature of this chasm is defined by how Betty differs from Diane. Betty is wide-eyed and optimistic. Hollywood is a place where dreams come true and stars are made. She wants to not just be a movie star, but a great actress. Or perhaps both.
Unless, of course, I'm discovered and become a movie star. Well, of course, I'd rather be known as a great actress than a movie star. But, sometimes people end up being both.
Diane is nihilistic and bitter, having completely given up on her dream. Except, on closer inspection, she hasn't. Those who have given up on their dreams don't fantasize about who they wish they had been. There's a crucial psychological truth that Mulholland Drive taps into about what hopelessness is. The belief that one can't achieve their dreams does not mean they no longer desire them. If the ideas behind the learned helplessness hypothesis were true, a hopeless person should no longer crave their fantasy. They would simply give up. Diane has not given up, because if she had, her story would be defined by an action. But a decisive action is what she takes. In her desperation, she commits an act of spiteful violence to do away with the constant reminders of her failure.
I wanted the lead so bad. Camilla got the part. The director,
Bob Brooker?
he didn't think so much of me. She helped me getting some parts in some of her films.
I see.
Betty's world is a form of wish fulfillment, the term for when a person tries to satisfy their unconscious desires in their dreams or fantasies. In her fantasy, Betty is a do-gooder who tries to help others.
What are you doing? Come on, help me in. No.
When she meets Rita, she does her best to keep her safe. Yet Betty is not the only figment of Diane's fantasy. The entire cast and context of the world she inhabits is. Betty is not just helping a woman in trouble. She is intentionally placing herself in a position of power over the woman who has scorned her. Her dreams betray her true feelings far more than first realized. Betty may be naive and kind-hearted, but she is also the sole agent in control of Rita. The love of her life has become entirely reliant on her, a reliance which Rita expresses gratitude for.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you for everything.
You're welcome.
Despite being the one with all the power, Betty is also portrayed as a virginal innocent who is eventually seduced by a seductive Rita. For Betty's fantasy to satisfy her, she must both have control and be the primary object of desire. Betty's faux innocence is subsequently unraveled when she continually exclaims that she is in love with Rita.
I'm in love with you.
Now that the conditions have been met in which she is both powerful and desired, she can express her true feelings. Making love to Rita is only half the wish fulfillment. The rest is all contextual. As an audience, we, like Rita, completely fall for Betty's innocence. When she auditions for a role and the older co-star begins to act creepy and coercive, our visceral reaction is to be protective of her.
Just tell me where it hurts, baby.
What?
We're gonna play this nice and close, just like in the movies.
But we are thrown a curveball. Underneath her perfect innocence is a world-class acting performance that feels real, an effect that is all the more powerful because it follows an hour of unreal, sitcom-like acting.
Okay, Irene. Won't that be the day?
As soon as it's over, Betty drops back into her uncanny doe-eyed optimism. In this moment, the acting seems real, and the real appears like acting. This open manipulation of the audience is the first time it is clear that what we are seeing is orchestrated. As viewers, we become conscious that Betty is not only a kind and innocent woman to be protected, but that she also possesses a powerful edge which, in this case, manifests as artistic brilliance. Our exposure to this tension between naive innocence and edgy genius places us firmly in the contradictions that comprise Diane's delusions. What separates us from Rita is that because we are not products of Diane's mental construction, we are jarred by this display of contradiction. While I will discuss the implications of this blatant orchestration later, particularly in the context of Club Silencio, the important takeaway here is that Betty's audition is a crucial demonstration of her agency within the delusion. Diane's fantasy is revealed to be dynamically constructed, willing to reshape the building blocks of reality, both in form, the darker shift in tone, and in content, Betty's acting performance. And she will do all of this to satisfy the goals of her wish fulfillment. The intentionality of Diane's construction is clear in other elements of her fantasy. For instance, it is not random that in the Betty version of Adam Kesher's storyline, the man who stole Camilla from Diane has now had his wife stolen from him. The humiliation he endures as he gets shouted at by an entirely uncaring wife and punched in the face by Billy Ray Cyrus is an expression of Diane's own pain. Adam's wife couldn't care less about him, just like Diane has made herself believe Camilla couldn't care less about her. It is also more than a happy coincidence that the elaborate conspiracy which prevents Betty's career from taking off involves a plot in which Adam is humiliated by his producers.
It's no longer your film.
This is the girl.
He loses all his money, and under potentially the threat of his own life, has to choose an alternative actress against his will.
This is the girl.
Excellent choice.
Betty's story nails a sense of subjectivity because its elaborate attempts to avoid the truth are filled with holes, and it is in these holes where the truth of her psyche resides. Yet, this subjectivity extends to Diane's story as well. She may be presented as the real one in the film, but ultimately, both stories are housed within a fictional film called Mulholland Drive. While Diane's perspective may be closer to the factual elements that have occurred, we still view the events through her subjective eyes. Take Adam and Camilla's announcement that they intend to be married. As we see it in the film, their announcement appears to be entirely orchestrated as a plot to humiliate Diane. Their sneers, side eyes, and private laughs are clearly a product of Diane's biased perception.
¿Qué va?
So if this is true, how are they really behaving? The point of such a framing is that it doesn't matter how they are, objectively speaking. This is how it is to Diane, so this is what is true for her. That film can show us the stories of characters so we can immerse ourselves in their lives and learn from their experiences is an incredible thing. But so often the films we watch show us what is happening to its characters. We get an external picture. We are continuously faced with the events which comprise the lives of others, and if we are empathetic, we try to imagine what it is like to be them. In the best kinds of films, our cues to empathize are strengthened and reinforced by a talented actor or actress portraying their emotions in as convincing a manner as they can. Mulholland Drive takes its call for empathy further, by not only presenting us with a flawed protagonist, who is by all accounts a murderer, but showing us the machinations of her psyche, putting us in the fully embodied point of view of someone who spends every day as themselves, with themselves. When Diane is revealed, we don't find an excuse for her pain, because our empathy isn't reliant on any excuses. We empathize because we've come to know her intimately, as she is. What Mulholland Drive demonstrates so well is that our desires are more than just what we want. They define how we construct the narratives of our lives. The wide chasm between who Diane is and who she wants to be is the source of her pain, and often the source of ours too. And so our empathy is not ultimately derived from the fact that we know Diana's had it rough, but from knowing that inside her, like all of us, lives a Betty.